Well, let's moving on to our next presentation, which is by Hala Hanna. And so Hala is a managing director of community at Solve MIT. And her talk, the title of her talk, at least the title, and she'll talk about other things, is how open innovation can help solve the future of work. Nevertheless, as I said, and she and I had discussed this earlier, she wants to touch several topics, and so I'll let Hal take over from here. And good to see you. And maybe also as part of what you want to state at the beginning is to explain what Solve is, so for those people who are not familiar with it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jose. And I'm so glad to be with all of you. Thanks for being here. Whatever time o'clock it is where you are. I'm Hala Hanna. I'm the Managing Director of Community at Solve. And what I want to share with you today is a focus on how we have seen corporations use open innovation and partnership with scrappy innovators to achieve their social and environmental impact goals. And not, of course, that touches on the future of work, but there's just that landscape is changing so rapidly that I feel that the information that I have today may already be outdated tomorrow. It's not an overstatement to say that we are facing big challenges today, whether it's how we can prepare for, detect, and respond to emerging pandemics and health security threats, whether it's how can marginalized populations access good jobs and create entrepreneurial opportunities for themselves, how can we produce and consume low carbon, nutritious food. These are big challenges, the type of challenges that an institution like MIT, with an ethos of practical application and problem solving and entrepreneurial spirit, has sought to tackle since its founding 150 years ago. MIT has been an incredible engine for innovation, partnering with private sector and government to tackle these big, bold challenges. And I'm sure you know, whether it's the internet or GPS or the Apollo mission or some innovations that are actually core to your business, they all had some start at MIT. And the question that President Reif of MIT had is, how does MIT continue to tackle these big challenges in the 21st century, where there is 7.5 billion people in the world, and we know that while talent and ingenuity and potential are equally distributed across the world, opportunity is not. And there's a very few number of those people that actually gets to have an MIT ID. Solve answers these questions through open innovation and cross-sector partnerships. Of course, technology continues to play a huge role in finding the solutions that we need, and yet technology is far from sufficient alone. And not just that, it's not one actor can do this alone. We know that we must work together cross-sector to ensure that innovation that improves the lives of those that need it the most is taking place and scaling. In fact, nothing has made this more clear than the current crises, plural, that we are facing today. So the same year that Solve was founded, in 2015, the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals set ambitious targets for humanity to significantly reduce poverty, improve health and education and the environment, all by 2030. And, we have just faced a huge setback on getting to those goals. Already before the pandemic, there was a reported 2.5 trillion annual funding gap to achieve those goals. And it's not just the funding gap, right? To get there, we need to close also the innovation gap and the partnership gap. We're not going to solve our global problems if we only look in Silicon Valley or Kendall Square. We believe we need to find and help scale innovative solutions that are designed with, deployed for, and used by those that are poorest and most marginalized too. And the good news is that from running 16 global challenges in the past 3 years on topics as diverse as the future of work, brain health, carbon emission, we have seen that there are so many promising solutions out there everywhere. Social entrepreneurs that are working day in, day out in their communities to create innovations that can significantly solve world challenges. And actually, I'm going to ask if we can play a video right now, and then I can come back to my slides.
I have a daughter with cerebral palsy. Her name is Clara and she's 11 years old. The moment I found out about her situation, empowering people with disabilities became a passion for me. And out of this passion, I created Livox. Livox is a solution for Android tablets that enables nonverbal people with disabilities to communicate. It's a really big challenge for people with severe disabilities, but also people with learning impairments to engage in a regular classroom. I applied to Solve because there are over 1 billion people with disabilities on the planet, and they are the group with the highest risk of social exclusion. The MIT Solve Teachers and Educators Challenge is very tied up with what we do, and people with disabilities, they must not be left behind.
So General Motors partnered with MIT Solve with this idea that we find the best solutions when we try and harness the collective power of our intellect. And Solve really provided this platform and created this ecosystem of entrepreneurs from Brazil to Africa to India, all coming together and working towards this shared vision of making this planet a better place.
Livox has the opportunity to grow beyond just helping Carlos and his daughter Clara, but going into helping hundreds of thousands, even millions of people throughout the world.
We might be able to use the artificial intelligence in Livox to prevent distracted driving in the future. So even though Livox worked with a technology for people with disabilities, I think it's far-reaching.
What we see is that early stage social entrepreneurs are everywhere around the world, but very few of them are able to succeed and are able to scale. That's what Solve is trying to help our Solver teams with, is really connecting them with people who can move resources to their projects to really accelerate their work.
Because of Solve and GM, we are in a very good position now to improve the lives of people with disabilities. So we're really excited about the possibilities that lie ahead.
So Carlos Pereira, who you saw in the video, is one of the entrepreneurs that we work with. He's in Brazil. He is working to support communication and education for people with non-verbal disabilities. And there are people like you, like GM, that are looking to invest in innovative solutions. But what we found is that there wasn't a good, transparent way to connect that supply with that demand. And this is where Solve created a marketplace for social impact innovation. So each year we launch specific actionable challenges across 4 areas: learning, health, economic prosperity, and sustainability. We open up these challenges for anyone, anywhere around the world to submit a solution and comment and vote on the solutions on our open innovation platform. And then our judges select the most promising innovators that we call solver teams that go through a 9-month robust program to support them. We built this community around each challenge, comprised of leaders from all sectors, corporate leaders, technologists, investors, foundations, nonprofit leaders who can bring to bear the resources, whether they're advice or technology or organizational, that support these innovators. And finally, and maybe most importantly, we act as that marketplace to connect the best solutions to the resources that they need for them to scale. So this year, these are the 5 challenges that we've launched. So good jobs and inclusive entrepreneurship, sustainable food system, learning for girls and women. And as a response to the pandemic, we launched in March the health security and pandemics. In fact, the challenges close in a couple of hours. So my team is responding to a lot of emails right now. We've received over 2,000 solutions from 120 countries. And every September, we select a class of 30. So we selected to date 130 Solver teams across 16 challenges. And across our portfolio, half of our Solver teams are for profit and the other half are nonprofits. And about 52% of our Solver teams are women-led, which is why I always say that if you cannot find women tech entrepreneurs, maybe you're not looking hard enough. Because they're there. We work with them day in, day out, and we talked about Levox. Basically, Carlos quit his job and built a company so he could communicate with his daughter. His AI uses natural language processing and adapts to different types of disability. And General Motor invested in them and are looking at potentially incorporating this technology in their vehicles, which shows that this kind of partnership between an innovator and a corporation is not just doing good, it's often core business. Or take Miranda Wang, who leads Bioselection. It's a California-based startup that chemically transforms 91% of plastic that ends up in landfills and incinerators and our ocean into high-value materials such as nylon that can be used, for example, in car parts. The technology is practical and cost-effective and environmentally transformative. So how did we find Miranda? Actually, through our Solve member, HP. We co-hosted a Solvathon workshop together in their HP labs on the topic of circular economy, a topic that they're heavily invested in. And Bioselection showed up there, applied to the challenge, and then was selected as a Solver team. And we've since has been working with some of the 3D printing teams at HP. And that's the type of connection that we aim to support at Solve. Or another example is Algramo, a Solver team that decouples consumption from plastic waste by using vending machines to sell refills of staple goods in stores, which helps eliminate also the poverty tax that many people in places like Santiago, Chile face because they have to, given the steep costs of smaller packaging. And when Algramo's RFID system expands to retail stores, brands can also save money by shipping consumer products like detergents in bulk containers instead of thousands of smaller packages with a refill system that will also take less shelf space. In fact, the consumer reuse rates of Algramo's products are so high for the industry that we found that Unilever is working to cut its own use of plastic, partnered with Algramo on the pilot to refill system on the electric tricycle. So that's another example. We'll have a third person with us just after I finish my presentation from our Solver Learning Solver Code Nation, and we'll talk a bit more about how they partner with corporations. Of course, our support is not just these prizes, but also exposure, mentorship, coaching that early stage organizations need for growth. And we work with our corporate partners to engage their employees in order to do that with our Solver teams. And we started also a philanthropic venture fund that we can talk more about if there's interest, that makes direct investments in our Solver team. So it combines our open innovation platform with flexible capital, which helps us scale early stage impact solutions globally. So where are we now? In the past 3 years, we've partnered with over a dozen of corporate and foundation partners and over 100 members that bring this marketplace to life. We've brokered a total of $25 million and created about 200 partnerships with our member companies and our social entrepreneurs that are solving world problems. And some of Solve's 120 member organizations engage with us either through their corporate social responsibility units, but also through their philanthropic activities. And many corporations like GM view investments in a Solver like Levox as an integral part of their innovation pipeline. There is a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and many people do not feel like they can contribute meaningfully to tackling world problems. And I think Solve is an opportunity to do this, to roll up your sleeves and solve these massive global challenges. Solve is all about that collaboration and that community. So whatever your personal interests, organizational, social impact goal, we hope we partner with you to tackle these big global challenges. And I'm looking forward to your questions. And thank you so much. And I hope you come and solve with us.
Great. I love the video. I was like, oh, watching the video. It's beautiful. And so we're going to bring a guest at one point, but one question I had right away, and you alluded to this just now. I'm a busy person. I have my corporate job. So, and we put some links for people to become part of the member community. And so, how could let's assume that your average viewer is working currently at a corporation and they would like to contribute in some way. What would be like a let's call it kind of the lowest friction way to become involved in Solve?
Thank you for this. I love this question. So there is there are so many ways, but I'll do the lowest friction one, which is well, if you have a solution, you don't have to be a small entrepreneur. You can also be a small project within a larger organization. So if you are working on some of those challenges and you're passionate about them, you can apply to become one of our solvers. You can also review some of the submitted solutions. So thank you, Juan, for putting the links up there. You can mentor solver teams. In fact, like Code Nations, that's going to come up later here. So I would actually love to take a poll and see where people are most interested to be engaged with Solve.
All right, let's do that. There we go. Tell me more. So there we go. Tell me more is although that one and to be a reviewer are pretty close. And I'd like to be a mentor, of course, that probably involves more time. So you can see how that one's kind of on the third. But there's certainly all three are valuable contributions. So tell us a little bit more about how to become a Solve member.
Absolutely fantastic. So we have 120 members that are really from across all sectors and industries, and the way people become members so that they can shape our global challenges, so they get a say in where we're going to their input on where we're going to focus next. They play a part in strengthening innovation ecosystems. Sometimes some of our members are particularly interested in, for example, artificial intelligence for good, and so they would push particularly for that topic, either through a prize or really just through telling us that they're really interested in it. It's a great one of the things that our members find the most value in is the access to a pipeline of innovators that has been vetted and that is really very diverse. So that's the best way to connect. You get a kind of a relationship manager that helps you connect with those innovators as per your interest. And then after that, there's also, of course, the network, the 120 other fellow members of the community that join our virtual and in-person events. Everything is centered around impact and particularly on the social, environmental, and economic issues. So there's the access to the pipeline, there is the connecting with Solve and the MIT community, and you'll hear a lot of the similarities also with what ILP does so well with that with that focus on the social aspect of things.
Mm-hmm. Great. So now you had a special guest, right, that was going to join us today. So let's see if maybe we can bring her in, and then, but otherwise we have other questions we can address. So let's see if we can bring Shantina. Let's see. Looks like she is logged in. Well, while we wait for her to come in, a question on the participants more on the formal side. Can corporates be part of Solve as part of the kind of their social, corporate social responsibility? I mean, I saw HP and others as contributors, but of resources, materials, technology. But can their employees be part of a Solve team, or is this more venture based, or is it both?
It's absolutely both, yes. And we have, in fact, some of our, we've had a few larger organizations apply and become Solver teams as a smaller, project within that organization. Like, for example, Save the Children, which is pretty large nonprofit, and so it's a very much of a revolving door. We see organizations come in either as prize funders or Solver teams, or partnering with Solver teams, even if it's not their own project. So we've had quite a few symbiotic activities like this. There's quite a bit of direct investment also in some of the Solver teams. One example is recently a Life Bank, which is a Nigerian-based medical startup, is working with a consortium of organizations in the health sector like Merck and Merck for Mothers, to scale their work across the African continent in developing countries. They have a really innovative way of delivering blood and critical medical supplies in places where maps and traffic are not working in your favor.
All right, so here we go. All right, let's get off of mute, which is probably the most used phrase these days. There we go. Well, so I will let Hala, you introduce our guest, and then I will join you afterwards, and we can continue the conversation and chat some more. Okay.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jose, and hello, welcome, Shantina. Dr. Shantina Jackson is the managing director at Code Nation. Shantina is a STEM education leader in the Bay Area. And Code Nation was selected as a Solver in 2017 as one of the most promising solutions to the challenge of preparing today's youth for the jobs of tomorrow, a very topical issue. And they went through the Solve program, but they have grown so much since, including a 1.5 million grant from Solve member Strata Education Network last year, which helped them equip students in under-resourced schools with the skills needed to launch careers in tech. But I will let Shantina actually tell you much more about Code Nation. Shantina, on to you, please.
Good morning to all of you. I'm here to talk about a major system error in tech today. The US is facing a major tech workforce shortage. Code Nation, we project that even in 2020, at the end of the year, over 1 million tech jobs will go unfilled. And we also know that folks that pursue tech as a career, they tend to make that decision in high school or maybe even a few years before. But the problem with that is only half of US high schools even offer computer science as a course students can take. You add to that the challenges of this current COVID-19 pandemic. Schools are scrambling to start and even understand fully how to best educate students in this new time we're calling the new normal. So basically, still, our schools cannot solve this crisis alone. So that's why we found Code Nation. So at Code Nation, we're a nonprofit organization that equips students that attend under-resourced high schools with the skills, experiences, and connections that they need to land a career in tech. So how do we do this at Code Nation? So for one, Code Nation provides skills. We partner with volunteer software engineers to teach coding classes to our under-resourced high school students. Our average student family income is around $46,000 a year. So for many of our Code Nation students, taking a Code Nation class is their first step towards economic mobility. Our students learn front-end web development skills and entry-level coding skills, and they focus on languages like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Code Nation also provides experiences. Our students take classes at fantastic companies like Etsy, Salesforce, American Express, and they get the actual experience of learning in these tech companies, learning about what it's like to work at a tech company and what it's like to be mentored by real tech professionals. We also provide connections. So through our hackathons, through our classes, through our virtual field trips and career panels, our students are connected to real mentors and real resources in the tech industry. Here are beautiful Codation students. We've served over 5,000 students since our founding. 74% of them, of our alum, are either studying tech now or they're on their way on the path to studying tech, or they're either employed in tech or they're on a path to study tech right now. And we expect them to gain $1 billion in incremental income over the years by 2025, which is amazing. So we're really proud of our students, we're really proud of our alum, we're really proud of our outcomes. Code Nation works. We have a proven model. We need you to help us reach our goal by 2025. We aim to prepare over 20,000 students for careers in tech. And at the end of the day, our job is about breaking cycles of poverty and also about diversifying tech. We can make these goals, but we definitely need all of you on this call to partner with us and do so. So thank you so much. I've been Shantina from Code Nation, and I'm here to talk more with you, answer some questions, and continue this conversation.
Thank you so much, Shantina. It's impressive to see how much I feel like every time we check in with you, you've grown even further,
Yeah.
and it's really exciting to see all of these corporate partnerships that you've been talking about. And I know that they're a big part of what you do.
Exactly.
Can I ask questions, Jose, or should we kick it?
No, let's yeah. I have questions. You have questions. I'll let you go first.
Okay,
Yeah.
fantastic. Well, what makes the best corporate partner, and if you can tell us how corporations maybe benefit from the work from working with Code Nation.
Fantastic. I'll start with your first question. So the best corporate partners. So one, we love for our partners to give us three things and partner with us on three things, and that's giving us their time, their talent, and their treasure. Right. So with time, many of our corporate partners partner with us by being volunteer teachers for Code Nation. This can look like hosting a fellowship class, which means a group of maybe like 4 engineers on maybe like your engineering team would host a class of maybe 20 to 25 high school students, hosting virtually at this point due to COVID. So partnering with us and volunteering and teaching that curriculum in that way. If you don't have a small engineering, if you have a small engineering team, but maybe have folks who want to do maybe like a one-on-one career panel, we'd love for you to be able to join us in that way and help mentor some of our students. Another way you can partner with us would be offering resume support, cover letter support. We do things called professional skills days where we ask our students to do whiteboarding activities, right? Our job is to really prepare our students for a career in tech, but also the actual application process to getting to tech, right? So if we can have partners in our corporations that do that, that is amazing and wonderful. We also look for partners that can that are in multiple sites at Code Nation. We've grown quite quickly since 2012, our founding. Right now, we're in 3 regions. So we're in the Bay Area, here in California, which is San Francisco and Oakland. We're in Chicago, and we are also in New York. So we look for corporate partners that have multi-regional offices. It's always great. It helps us to boost our national brand and will help you also as a company to boost your national brand. We also partner with companies that really have a mission and a passion for what I mentioned, which is diversifying tech and breaking up cycles of poverty, right? We can partner with a company in a couple of ways. Sometimes we may go through their CSR. Sometimes we may go through their D&I or their diversity and equity folks. Sometimes we go through their HR folks. Sometimes we may go through their ERG, their employee resource group. Maybe they have like one for females, or they have one for Black folks, or they have one for Latinx folks. So depending on the company, their size, and how they're structured, we can design a way we can partner with you that makes sense. Hala, I think you asked sort of what do companies get out of partnering with Code Nation? So much. So one, a lot of our corporate partners report back that their engineers that do volunteer with Code Nation, they have just become top notch, so much better, like project managers, right? Think about it. As a software engineer, you probably haven't looked at HTML for a while. You probably haven't looked at JavaScript for a while. And just sort of remembering what it's like to have to explain something step by step to a young person is just a great way to increase your team's just sort of teaching skills, project managing skills, team building skills. So many companies right now, I'm sure all of y'all know this, during particularly these last few weeks, there have been all these corporate, statements about we support Black lives, we support students of color, we support people of color, all of that. Well, partnering with Code Nation is actually a way to not just pay lip service to those promises, right? But it's an actual way to actually mentor one-on-one or even in small groups students. One of the cool things about our programs is that by the end of a Code Nation year, a student will have at least 8 professional software engineers in their LinkedIn network, right? We find that our corporate partners are engineers. They find so much happiness and just joy in mentoring a young person, right? It's just joy, which leads to a better work experience. Prior to COVID, we had our classes actually at tech companies. We're still hopeful that by January 2021, we may be able to go back in person to some of our tech companies. But anyway, just that joy of having young people in the space and that joy of having that extra bump at work, it was really a morale booster for many of our companies as well, right? So our employees were having a good time, which led to some longer stays for those employees. Y'all know that tech can recycle folks pretty quickly. Oops, sorry, shaking the camera. Yeah, I think those are my quick ones. Also, so yeah, companies that have lots of regions, companies that care about our mission, and companies that also care about diversifying tech. That's another thing. Yeah, if we can get those three, we're happy.
Okay. Hala, did you have any other question or?
I can always ask.
No. Well, no, because I had plenty myself.
Okay, I'll let you go and then I.
Okay, let's do some back and forth. So there's a question of coding, which especially for people who are older like me, coding was this daunting thing, and I can see some of these young people's parents are also seeing this as, whoa, this is too much. It's very complex, but that's not the case. You have all kinds of object-oriented programming for everything from controlling microcontrollers for mechanical devices, all the way to AI nowadays, and kind of drag and drop menus and things like that. So I can almost see this idea of coding almost as daunting, and so how do you break that perception, which is incorrect, right? And also, in a big question on that one is the question of college as also another daunting barrier, right? Those are the two big ones in these communities.
Absolutely. So just sort of the daunting, sort of nature of coding. So I think, quite frankly, taking a Code Nation class with software engineers and professionals helps students have that motivation to be like this person in front of me teaching me this code. And we train our volunteer instructors very well in how to teach complex topics and break them down into small pieces, right? At Code Nation, many of us are educators. Many of us have a background in teacher training and professional development. So we're able to pinpoint lots of pain points where students may get trapped, right? So we have lots of kind of tips and tricks. But to simplify it, I would say it's the relationships that our professional software engineers bring to the table. Making sure that students understand that all engineering is about trial and error. It's about debugging. It's about working in a group to make sure you're getting the best possible MVP. And it's about having that mentor by your side to where if you are getting stuck on this line of code, if you can't quite get the syntax right, there's someone always there with you step by step each way of or going through each step of the process with students side by side. So that's huge. Just that kind of comfort, that mentorship, that's one-on-one, that really helps our students push through some of those hard days when they're getting to a topic that may be complicated, like variables, or when we get to JavaScript, we actually notice HTML and CSS is like our students fly by. When they hit JavaScript, oh man, there's some of that wall that comes, right? So again, we really take time with giving our professional software engineer volunteers over 60 hours of training to make sure we train them specifically on how to deal with those sort of pressure point areas. For families, we have a family engagement initiative where we reach out to families and just kind of educate families on what the tech industry is. Our parents love those big shiny numbers when we say, your student could be earning, close to 6 figures, out of college. They're like, what? So parents are really excited to hear that. But again, it's not just about individual income, but again, it's about this, breaking the cycles of poverty and also economic mobility for not just a student, but for their whole family. So one we start about, this is this could be a life-changing career change for your kid, but also for your whole family. We do things like we celebrate family events. We reach out to families through family newsletters. We bring our families along as partners so they get just very used to seeing us and get used to tech in their lives. We also stress the message that young people are often consumers of tech, but not creators of tech, right? And we stress the message that tech needs you, tech needs your voice, tech needs the voice of low income students. It needs the voice of folks who are Black, folks who are female, folks who are Latinx, folks who are whatever, whatever, right? Tech needs to be diversified, and you have that voice, and only you can solve these problems. So, again, empowering our students to bring that voice to the work and have them experience the joy of having their code like work, that's just an amazing aha moment that we see all the time with Code Nation. So, as far as college goes, we introduce our students to lots of paths. That happens mainly with our seniors. We introduce them to the idea of a boot camp. So, for example, we do love college at Code Nation. We think our students should go to college. We have about 74% of them who already are, but we also recognize it may not be the choice and the best move for all students. Maybe a boot camp is better for those students. So, we introduce that idea to students. Maybe going to junior college for the first few years and then transferring to a 4 year is the move to save some money for the family, right? So we educate, particularly their senior year, on the several paths to a career in tech. That could include the traditional 4 year route, it could include a boot camp, also internship opportunities. We love to partner with our partner companies and bring them our potential students as interns, right? Hala, back to your original question, what makes a good partner? I think a flexible partner also. One of the challenges of code is that
And can I ask also, as you answer the question, can you
yeah,
also indicate like what have been historically the industries that have been involved?
yeah, perfect. So yes, I mentioned Salesforce. I mentioned American Express. I mentioned Etsy. We have other folks like Pandora. We have folks like all over the spectrum. We have folks. There's a cool startup in Oakland called Launch Darkly that we work with. Stitch Fix is a partner, right? So you name it, we can partner with them. Again, organizations that are nimble and flexible are awesome partners. Yeah, and I think where I was going with that, thank you, Jose, you just reminded me of something else, sort of that flexibility that we look for. We also love companies that are willing to take a risk because our students are actually high school students, right? So what that means is those students can't necessarily flip into being hireable, in a year, but it may take, 4 years for them to finish college, or if they do a boot camp, maybe they're ready earlier. But there is sort of a long game involved with Codation, right? So folks who are willing to take a risk, maybe take on a person as a mentor, or as an intern, or as a mentee, excuse me, or an intern, and the person may be near 18 or 19, not quite, old enough or as old as your first, intern cohort, which might be more typically juniors or seniors in college. Our students are high school students. We do also have college alumni as well. So we have a mix. So corporate partners that are kind of willing to take that risk with a younger student also makes a great partner for us too.
Okay, I'm just throwing a little question that came in from
Sure.
our audience, and then I'll let Hala take it over. So how often do these students end up working for companies? Kind of like let's call it a success rate, or kind of a recruiting metrics that you may have.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're still building our Codation has only been around since 2012. So we are still building those numbers. Again, 74% of our students are on track to work in tech. We do have numbers of students, for example, in the Bay Area. We have a new cohort that's about 12 students right now that are on their way to now their first year in college. So they're preparing to kind of make those steps. So I'd have to get back to you on like an exact like actual entrance to tech rate. But again, because it's sort of a long game for us, we track our students in their path to tech. We think about Code Nation as their first step to tech, right? So again, that first time they see tech is often in a Code Nation high school class. And then once they become seniors, we provide them with the alumni support. We provide them with the resume support, the cover letter support, the LinkedIn support, the whiteboarding activity support. So there's lots of things that need to happen between those two times, but I can totally get that number back to you.
Yeah, okay.
Sure.
And I can totally see how that could be a game changer for
Yeah.
someone that may not have those opportunities otherwise. And actually, I want to, maybe my next question, I want to address this moment also that we're in. It is a watershed moment in the United States, and a movement calling for the end of a lot of the injustices and social inequities that exist. And particularly, I think in the education system, those inequities not only have these big consequences, but also are very flagrant. And I'm wondering what Code Nation's work has shown you about those inequalities and also how to fix them.
Yeah. So thank you for that question. This current moment has been really life changing. It taught us a few things. One, it showed us how fragile our education system really is. Um, we do classes that are meeting in high schools, and we also do classes that meet at tech companies. So when we first had the shelter in place in March, we were able to pretty easily pivot to a virtual model with our tech companies. Those folks were nimble, those folks were already working from home. They just kind of picked it up right where they left off. But for our school partners, it was a whole different story. Schools were late to get out their remote learning plans. Schools were trying to figure it out. Schools weren't even sure if they were going to stay open for the rest of the year or just close early. So, for those students that were our youngest students, the students who got that first step to technology, that first class, they were the most heavily impacted negatively by this COVID crisis, right? So, again, it showed us that schools are very fragile. It showed us that schools need a lot of support. It showed us that schools cannot solve the crisis of placing or preparing students for tech alone. And we really need to wrap our heads around how to improve the education system sort of writ large. So that's one thing it taught us. Secondly, it also taught us that our students are resilient. Despite all what was happening, our students figured out ways to get access to their device, even if they were sharing it with mom and brother and little sister and all of that. They found a way to get a laptop, get on for that hour of Code Nation, get on and finish their challenges, finish up their code, finish up their project, finish up their React, finish up their HTML, whatever they had to do. They were very resilient, and they worked it out. We also learned that that wasn't the case for all of our students. We found that our Black and Latinx students were the least able to deal with the transition, and some of their attendance dropped off and declined since we went to the shelter in place. So over the summer, we've got some really pointed interventions that we're pointing to our Latinx and our African American students to get them back on track.
And the other big issue of the times, of course, we're dealing with racial unrest.
Yes.
And here is a program that is actually looking to address this,
Absolutely.
at the core of socioeconomic and educational advancement.
Yeah.
And I imagine that has been a big conversation in the last few weeks.
Absolutely, it has. One of the things that before COVID even hit last year, as the managing director of the Bay Area, I began to notice some troubling trends in our data. I was noticing that our Black students were less likely to stick with Code Nation throughout the whole year. They were dropping at rates that were higher than the rest of our other students. So we looked at all that and we created something called the BSR Squared, which is our Black Student Recruitment and Retention Program. We targeted champions in the schools that we work with and said, hey, we're really looking to improve the numbers of our Black students specifically. Can you please point us to a school partner, a champion that could help us identify Black students that we can recruit for Code Nation, that we can tap if the student is having a hard time or falling off, that we can tap to be like that other voice, that other point of motivation to stick with Code Nation. That's one thing that we did immediately, actually before COVID, but has actually stepped up those efforts. As you mentioned, the COVID crisis also blew up for us the fact that BSR Squared is very much needed. At this point, our BSR Squared is just a Bay Area initiative that, as the managing director, I put into motion to move. But now we're talking as an org, making it an org-wide, potentially making it an org-wide initiative. So it's even changing our structure as an org. We noticed similar trends with our Latinx students around challenges, logging on, staying on, sticking through. So now we're thinking about how can we create a similar initiative for our Latinx students as well. So Jose, to your point and to your question, our job is to get very specific and understand specifically the group, what their needs are. One of the things that we've kind of gotten away from is this idea of like grouping all of our students as people of color. These past events of these past few weeks have let the world know that there are very specific and unique issues that Black students are dealing with, that Latinx students are dealing with, and sometimes it makes sense to think about them as separate entities. And so we've been doing better in our data analysis and our program direction to address some of those very specific needs to address our specific racial groups.
Mhm. And so, question here, specific question. How hard is it to be selected for Code Nation, and how do you select the individuals that you support?
Yeah, good question. So there is a vetting process. The short answer is it's quite easy to become a volunteer for Food Kitchen. Typically, what we do is we put out a call. You know, we ask you to go to the website and sign up as a volunteer. There's a really cool Google form. It's very quick. There is a process where we need to vet you. You know, you do there's TB tests and fingerprints and all that. But once, and there's also an interview from a staff member again. Given the sort of recent movement and moment, we are really making sure that we center our work around racial inclusivity. So some of those, the fact that we are very clear in our message around the students that we serve, and making sure that volunteers are in line with our mission to bring diversity to tech is very crucial now for our volunteers. It was important before, but it's gotten even more renewed sense of importance as we move forward with our vetting process. So there's an interview to make sure we're aligned on mission and aligned on values as well. Most professional software engineers, like we don't do like a hacker rank or like a coding test. Like if you've gotten this far in your career as a software engineer, we figure you got it. You know, there is some, you know, you do get to see our curriculum sort of later in the training, but as far as any sort of like test or clearance, not really. It's more about getting your clearance from TB and from fingerprints, and also making sure you're in line with mission. Once we determine it's a good fit, we assign you to a school or we assign you to a company. And there's a training period. We go over how to teach, how to build relationship with students, which is super important, how to be sensitive to different racial, ethnic, and gender groups in our students. And yeah, that's pretty much the plan for our volunteers.
Okay.
We do lots of
And what about the students? What about the students themselves, right? The special students, and are there plans to take this outside of the United States?
Oh, great question. So, hey, yes, yes. So, students, we partner. So, a student comes to CodeNation through a partner school. We identify our partner schools by looking at the schools in our area that have at least 75% of their student body that is eligible for free or reduced price lunch. Once they hit that target, we then go in and either talk to, could be the principal, maybe it's like their director. If there is a computer science department, it's very rare here in the US, but if there is a computer science department, we'll talk to that person. Maybe there's a STEM lead, whoever the right sort of decision maker is, we partner with the school and talk to that person. And they will help us identify the students in that class. Sometimes we'll push into like maybe there's already an existing tech class. But not like a coding class, but maybe like, you know, intro to WordPerfect, or that's way too old. I dated myself, you know, intro to, right? So maybe it's more of like a tech skills class, but we'll push into that and actually turn it into a coding class where students actually learn entry level job skills. So sometimes we push into like a tech class if it exists. Sometimes we'll push into like an advisory class. It really just depends on the school. Again, we're very flexible and nimble. Sometimes we push into an after school class. Again, due to COVID, that after school space is has to be reworked right now. But however we can make it work with the school, we're very flexible, and that's how the students get chosen.
Great. And I don't know, Hala, if you had any other comment. Let me just grab one of the questions, and then I'll let Hala chime. I'm monopolizing the conversation here, but it's good stuff. So, is there a community of students that exists? I'm assuming there is. I mean, how do they keep in touch? How, you know, it's challenging as we all know. But so how is that working out for you?
Absolutely.
You mentioned that there's been a drop off, especially, you know, the Black community, Latinx community has had a challenge, a greater challenge.
Yes. So at CodeNation, we have a crucial role They're called our program managers, and our program managers really are the glue that hold the student community together. So each of our program managers is assigned a school, and that school may assign us maybe at one period, maybe three periods, maybe four periods, it depends. So our program managers are key in helping to manage those student relationships, making sure they stay together, stay tight. We communicate a lot on Slack, actually. So one of the professional skills that our students learn very early is Slack. So we have a Slack channel for our student communities where they can stay in touch and just say, hey, I'm doing well today, or hey, I'm not so great today. Can someone check on me? We do office hours for our students, so our students can always find a space to gather. They gather with their mentors, their teachers, their program manager, and their peers in those spaces. Over the summer, we engage them through affinity spaces or virtual field trips. So there's constant events that happen in the middle of just class as normal that keeps them tight. We also have something called Hello Girl, which is a affinity group for our female identifying Code Nation students. Um, so there's constantly, virtual field trips, speaker series, career panels for that. So they're constantly in touch, even again in the midst of the pandemic. We have had to step up like our kind of textathon efforts where we're just sort of texting students like, hey, haven't seen you in a while, is everything okay? Right now, we're doing some more training with our staff to make sure that we are applying the most like sensitive and most like thoughtful way to engage families that may be going through a hard time right now. We know that our families care about Code Nation and care about their students' education, but just quite frankly, this global pandemic has caused some of our families to deprioritize, lots of things. And sometimes, parents are overwhelmed and students are overwhelmed. They're not able to get on the computer at 3 o'clock every day just because, maybe the family's moving or their family's, in transition, right? So all that to say, our program managers really are working through, and we're innovating every day, right? The student newsletter came about because of COVID, right? It's a way for us to be, and we do that weekly. We do like a raffle weekly. So there we are, and we feature a student weekly. We feature a student in their project. A student may have like a two-player game, and we post their two-player game. We just did a virtual hackathon a few weeks ago for our alumni. So we had our alum pitch in, and it was actually the theme of the alumni was Code Nation Fights COVID, right? So we're constantly innovating and constantly thinking of new ways to keep our community tight, particularly now that we're all remote. One kind of cool thing, because you asked about sort of being global. Well, again, with COVID, being in person matters less. So now what we're starting to think about is even if our partner is not in a Code Nation region, so let's say there's a partner out there, maybe you're out there, maybe you work for Boeing or somebody, and you're not in the Bay Area. Well, that might matter less now, right? Because if we're doing some virtual hackathon, you can do some virtual mentoring, you can do some virtual career panels, and the in-person part matters less. So we're thinking through, moving past our regions. We're thinking through, moving maybe even globally, if it makes sense. If the time zones can match up, that's a big deal. The time zone needs to match up. Just like I can see all your fantastic faces right now, and y'all can see me. That's important. It's important to remember that young people are social beings. Their peers are important. They crave social connection. So being able to see people, is important for them and talk to them and all that in real time. So we're working on getting some of our asynchronous and synchronous programs together, and maybe globally. That's something that we're talking about right now.
Great. Awesome. All right, Hala, we'll let you finish off as we approach the end of our time.
Thank you, Jose, and thank you, Shantina, for all of this. I really hope, your words are going to stay with me. A lot of organizations right now are associating their brand with all of these values that really are resonating at the moment, and Code Nation offers a very tangible way of doing something concrete about it. So thanks for talking to us about it. And so what I'll say is, when I hear people like you talk, I just remember why we do what we do at Solve, and I'm just so fortunate. I feel so fortunate to be working with 130 Solver teams, that share your passion and just the ability to use technology for good, for solving these challenges, whether it's at the community level, national level, or global level. And I want to thank Jose and the ILP team for having us on today. It was terrific to speak with you all. I hope you reach out and stay in touch, and ask a lot of more questions, and to keep you involved with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Pleasure.
Great. Well, thank you both. So let's we'll start wrapping this up. Yeah, thanks to everybody for attending our webinar today, and we have put some links in the chat, but we also put our videos and other information related to our webinars at our website, ilp.mit.edu. Usually it takes about a week for us to do some post-production and upload those. So feel free to check in a few days. And so on behalf of MIT's Office of Corporate Relations and the Industrial Liaison Program and the MIT Startup Exchange, my name is Jose Ramos. I thank you very much for being here, and we'll see you at our next event. Stay safe, stay healthy.